Miami to the Big 12. Is that a fit? Hey, we appreciate you stopping by here at the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis of the sport we all love. Why? That's based on your participation. Please leave a comment or question down below. Like and subscribe. A lot of talk out there concerning Miami moving to the Big 12. Much of the earlier talk had been focused on Miami possibly moving to the Big 10 or the SEC. We've addressed that in other videos. So let's discuss the current rumor that's out there, and I believe it's got some validity to it. Let's understand the situation right now. Florida State and Clemson have the ACC in court. There is no question, regardless of the outcome in regards to dollars that are exchanged and compensation that has to be made by Clemson and Florida State in leaving and breaking the grant of rights. That is a failed relationship, and that's going to end at some point. At what point, we don't know, but it's going to be rather soon. Therefore, the ACC is in jeopardy. Miami is the next best football brand, and it could be argued in the other sports, but football being king, Miami would be the next one to go. North Carolina, though, receiving a lot of attention as being desired by the Big Ten in particular, and the SEC. But let's focus on Miami to the Big 12. Is it a fit? Culturally dead? No. No, no, no. In no such way. When I think Big 12, I think the Plain States. I think the Dust Bowl. And I know that that's an antiquated look at the Big 12 because they brought in West Virginia, Cincinnati, UCF. And then they've gone out to Arizona, Arizona State. However, there is connection there with the Pac-12 schools that have come in to the Big 12 here recently. Heck, Colorado was a member of the Big 12. UCF, of course. Let's understand what the Big 12 had to do a few years ago to maintain not just relevance in the sport, but to fight off extinction after being plucked away with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, and then the possibility of others scrambling for other safer pastures. The Big 12 did what I recommended, not that they listened to me, but I certainly posted, hey, these are the 4 schools you need to go after. They did that. They went after the 4 best of the group of 5, Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, and BYU. So that's why they went that direction. But in doing so, of course, they've expanded the reach of the Big 12, and now they've gone into Florida. So why would not Miami be a fit for the Big 12? Again, the foundation of the Big 12 is in Texas, with 4 of the schools still out of the state of Texas: Houston, Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU. Also, I would consider 9 of the 16 schools in the Big 12 currently to be in that fortified Plains Midwest with Kansas, Kansas State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. Yes, the foundation of the Big 12 is still in the Midwest, the heartland of the country. Miami's big city, South Beach, and all of that. It's just a different brand. It's just a different look, and it not necessarily lining up with what the Big 12 has been. However, it's a different age of college football. So that's a fit culturally, and that is a definite no. But what matters in college football these days, of course, and has for a while, is the almighty dollar. Does that make sense? Well, that is a fit, obviously, for the Big 12. There are 3 brands on the table, in addition to Notre Dame, but 3 in the ACC. We could throw in North Carolina, especially with the basketball prowess of the Heels, as real game changers. Those schools are dwindling. They're coming off the board quickly, and there's only a few left. And Miami is one of those, despite a down 20 years in football. So if you look at the value that Miami would add to the Big 12, that is a no-brainer move for Brett Yormark in picking up a Miami football brand that still draws eyeballs, despite, again, being basically a 7-5 program for the last 20 years. Now, if Miami recovers, and Mario Cristobal's on the job there with top 10 recruiting classes the last 2 years, then you've got to think that Miami could possibly be the best draw. I would estimate and project Miami, a good Miami team, a team that's placing in the top 10 to 15 in the country, would be the biggest draw in the Big 12. So it's a thumbs up all around for the Big 12 in gaining Miami. But what about Miami's perspective on the Big 12? Miami does not want to join the Big 12. At least anybody who knows what's going on in college football. I can't speak for the administration right now. I don't know. No one knows the true interest of the Big Ten and the SEC. Miami fits the SEC for a number of reasons. Obviously, geographically, it's right there. There are series that Miami maintains and pursues on a regular basis against SEC teams. They play Florida on a fairly regular basis. Of course, they're playing them again this season to open the 2024 season. Miami also has recent series against Alabama, LSU, and Texas A&M. So they have maintained contact with the SEC. They don't so much play the Big Ten. However, Miami's an excellent school. The Big Ten cares about that. Also consider this. If I'm the Big Ten, I have said this for years, I go to Florida and I get Florida State and Miami, and I lock down recruiting. The Big Ten checks all the boxes across the board in regards to money, finances, resources, everything, alumni, big cities, everything. The Big Ten has it all except enough football players. And they are in Florida. And really, Ohio State has been the only proven commodity in regards to going to Florida and getting top-level talent. Nebraska, Penn State, and others get leftovers, get the top 100, 150 prospects out of the state of Florida. Ohio State's been the only one to go down there consistently out of the Big Ten. But once you plant the flag twice in Florida and you get Florida State's running mate, that's their main rival, it could be argued, Florida State, Miami, of course, that dynamic in the state of Florida. So I believe it makes sense for the Big Ten from an academic standpoint, from a branding standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, in all those ways. Of course, it makes sense for Miami. They would increase their value. Their television network deal would skyrocket and be so much more lucrative in the Big Ten at $85 to $90 million per year than it would be in the Big 12 at $30-40 million per year, plus the added incentive of the college football playoff at $21 million announced going forward in 2026 and beyond versus $13 million in the Big 12. So there's no comparison between the Big 12 and the Big 10 in regards to that being the destination desire for Miami. But for the Big 12, does it make sense? Absolutely, it makes sense. Get Miami. The recent talks concerning North Carolina out there in the media is quite interesting. The comparison between North Carolina and Miami is interesting. As football commodities on the field right now, they are practically dead even. If anything, North Carolina has been a little bit better football team under Mac Brown than Miami. But Miami has the potential to be much better, and we see that in the recruiting rankings. We see that throughout history with 5 national championships dating back to 1983. North Carolina has never won a national championship. They have not won the ACC since the early 1980s. And of course, Miami has yet to win the ACC since joining in 2004. So Miami potentially a much better football product than North Carolina, but North Carolina certainly has been just as good, if not better, recently. The basketball significance of North Carolina can't be understated. There's only a few basketball programs in the country that can come anywhere close to North Carolina, and only a few in the country, 5 to 10 possibly, that move the needle in any such way for that to be a huge consideration for any particular conference. Also, the Big Ten still values academics. Miami received its AAU accreditation recently. That's a check mark for Miami. Let's also consider, though, while Florida State has yet to receive that, they were on that finalist list of 17 in the last go-around, and entry into the Big Ten would probably seal the deal for Florida State. Miami is a top 50 such school in the country, but North Carolina is a top 20 to 25 school. As we have run down those lists in recent videos, please check them out. So Miami, North Carolina, interesting dynamic there. The TV viewership has been relatively close recently, but Miami has, again, that potential to bring in huge numbers. Go back to 2017 when Miami was on a 10-0 run to start the season. They had back-to-back ABC primetime games against Notre Dame and Virginia Tech that were ratings getters. All right, Florida State, Clemson. Florida State's preferred destination, I believe, is the Big Ten based on academics and because of the conference just exploding and having higher rates of return in the revenue distribution as it stands right now. So I think Florida State, once the Big Ten, would certainly settle And I don't mean settle for the SEC because, of course, that is the best conference in college football on the field to date. Clemson, I believe, is a fit for the SEC. It's only a top 80 school in the country. It's certainly entrenched in SEC country, much more so than Florida State. Florida's a different dynamic in the South than the Carolinas are. Clemson's an SEC school through and through. So when the dust settles, I would expect Clemson to be in the SEC. Florida State, I think, is 60-40 leaning toward the Big Ten, both based on their preference and the Big Ten's preference. Oh, and what about Notre Dame? People out there are hung up on a number. And right now for the Big Ten, they stand at 18. 20 sounds good, doesn't it? So Florida State is given the approval, and they join the Big Ten. And the Big Ten is somehow able to lure in Notre Dame, which, based on the recent made public information concerning the college football playoff going forward, it seems less and less likely that Notre Dame's going to be pried off its independent perch, even though I believe it should be, as the one lone remaining independent in the country. Yes, I know there's a couple more that counts, that means anything at all. It's Notre Dame. They need to come under the provision and under the authority of a conference going forward. But again, maybe when the SEC and the Big Ten get together and really structure this entire deal, they'll be able to do that. Although the fight for Notre Dame between those two, I don't know if it's going to make that a reasonable conclusion. So let's say the Big Ten goes out and gets Florida State. Let's say they do get Notre Dame. They're sitting at 20. A lot of people would think, well, they're not going to go to 21. That's an odd number. I keep hearing comments made about odd numbers. Well, the ACC right now is at 17. Of course, it's not going to be 17 for long. Consider this. The Big Ten had 13 schools. For how long? 30 years. Between 1993 and to the time that Rutgers and Maryland joined in 2014. 13 teams. Very odd number. Did it work? Yes, it was fine. And the Big Ten with 21 teams, if you add Notre Dame, Florida State, and Miami, 21 teams, works perfectly into 3 divisions. We posted a video a couple years ago now where we split the Big Ten into 3 7-team divisions, 21 teams, and we included, guess who? Miami, Florida State, and Notre Dame. North Carolina's that interesting factor out there as well. Then the Big Ten could go to 22. There we go. Your thoughts, your comments down below right here at the Voice of College Football. Interesting stuff. We know Florida State and Clemson are ridding themselves of the ACC. Who else is valuable? We know North Carolina should have a landing spot. Miami's going to have a landing spot. NC State, Louisville, a few others on the fence. They're good football commodities. They're popular. They've been strong on the field. They bring decent TV numbers. Louisville actually slightly better than Miami in the past 5 to 10 years. And then, of course, those have-nots, what's going to happen to them? We shall see it all play out here in the next couple months, probably years, folks. Your comments below. Please like and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football.